in this video we are going to see the problem on isometric projections, and for that here we have a question. It is given that figure shows two views of an object. Draw its isometric view. So here if we see, the front view and top view are given. Now before we start the question, we should know the total length, height and width of the object. So if I am looking into the front view, in that case I will be able to see the total length and the total height, and in the top view the total length and width will be visible. So here if I see in the top view, the center to center distance is 65 mm. Next, from this center up to the end, it is the radius of this outer semicircle, which is 25. So 25 plus 65, that is 90 mm. Next, from this center to the outermost distance, that is nothing but from the center to the outer semicircular portion, which is 40 mm. So in total 90 plus 40, that gives me the total length as 130 mm. I'll note it down. Next, for the total height, when I look into the front view, because height won't be visible in top view, so I have to see the front view. In the front, the maximum height is from the center up to the top, and that is the radius of, as I can see, the outer semicircular portion. So height is 40 mm. I'll write down. Then the total width. For the width, we have to look into the top view, and when I see the top view, the maximum width is 64 mm. So I'll write it down. Now once we have understood the total length, height and width of the object, I can easily start with the problem. So let us get started with the solution part. First I am drawing a light horizontal line. Next, selecting a point. And in case of isometric projections, the object is inclined at 30 degrees on both the sides. So from this point, I am measuring 30 degrees on one side, 30 degrees on the other side, drawing light lines through both the points. Then drawing the perpendicular line through this point, perpendicular to the horizontal line. Here I am drawing a vertical line over which I am going to mark the total height. Now when we look into the diagram, then origin is given. Origin is nothing but this point from which I have measured 30 degree angle. And now once I have reached up to this stage, then I should know that where I would be marking the total length, the total width and the total height, because we need to know the proper orientation, that is where to mark the length, where to mark the width. For that we have to look into the diagram and see where the origin is given. So if I look into the diagram, that is the front view, origin is at this location. So when I pick this object from the front and place it over here, the origin is coming on this side. It means length goes towards this side. So I would be marking the length here. Next, if in this problem the origin would have been over here, then I would have taken this object and placed it here. In that case the length would have been over this side. But as the origin is given here, so the length is passing through this point on this side, and that length is 130 mm. Length is 130. Then through this length I am drawing a light vertical line. Next, the total height is 40 mm. So I am marking the height over this vertical line. Next, width is 64 mm. So if length is marked over this side, width should be here. Width is 64 mm. Then parallel to the width, here I am drawing a line, a light line, marking 64 mm over it as the width. then parallel to the length. Over this I am marking the length as 130 mm. So here is the rectangular block inside which I am going to draw the complete object. Now, looking at the figure from the front, we would be seeing this semicircular portion which consists of the outer semicircle and the inner semicircle, and it has a total width of 64. Radius of the semicircle, which is outer, that is 40 mm, so its diameter becomes 80 mm in length. So here from one side I am going to measure 80 mm. Then once I have marked 80 mm over the length, now I want a semicircle. And just before drawing the semicircle, the procedure is we have to draw a parallelogram in case of isometric projection. If we have to draw the circle or the semicircle, here the process is different. Like I cannot directly take the radius of 40 mm and draw the semicircle. Here the procedure is I have to draw a parallelogram first corresponding to the diameter of the semicircle. Now here the diameter is 80 mm, so I have marked 80 mm. So this is one side of the parallelogram. Next, this is the other side. Here I am getting this height as 40 mm, so I'll extend this below again by 40 mm. This is the procedure we follow in case of isometric drawing for drawing the semicircle and circle. Now projecting this vertically down, here I get a point, projecting it down. So this is the parallelogram which is required in the drawing. So here I have drawn the parallelogram which is corresponding to the diameter of the semicircle, which is 80 mm. And next, the procedure is in this parallelogram I should draw a longer diagonal in this way, like connecting these 2 points will give me the longer diagonal. Now once I get the longer diagonal, the next procedure is I need to get the midpoints of all the sides of the parallelogram. Already 2 sides, the midpoint is known to me. Next, for the remaining 2 sides, I am marking the midpoint. Now the top midpoint should be joined to its opposite corner at the bottom in such a way that it will cut the longer diagonal like this. Next, this midpoint should be connected to the opposite corner, cutting the longer diagonal. And now where these lines are cutting the longer diagonal, I am getting 2 points. These will be the center points. Next, keeping this center and the distance equal to up to this midpoint, so drawing a light arc here. Next, I need another arc here because I want a semicircle, so this point should be connected here, and for that the center is at this location. So keeping this point as the center, here is this distance. Drawing a light arc in this manner, then this semicircular portion is having a width of 64 mm. So like I have drawn a semicircle at the front, similarly I'll draw it 64 mm backwards, that is 64 mm width. So another semicircle will be here, but that semicircle I should project it light. For that also the procedure is same. Like example, where this arc is cutting the longer diagonal, I'll project that point behind with the help of a light line. Next, this center point will be projected back. Then the center which I had used, that will also go back. Then this center will also be projected back, and this point. Now, in order to draw the semicircle, first the center which I had used, it will be shifted back by a distance of 64 mm because that is the width of this portion. So this center, I am taking it back by 64 mm. Next, measuring the same radius, that is from the center where I had drawn this arc, taking the same radius, but center is shifted 64 mm back, drawing an arc. Next, this center which I had used at the bottom, this will also go 64 mm back. So here I get this center point. Now this is the center, and here I can take this radius where this arc was ending and drawing a light line, a light arc. So here is the semicircular portion. Then inside this semicircle there is another semicircle of radius 25 mm. So the procedure will be same. Since we have to draw the semicircle, radius is 25, so diameter becomes 50 mm. I will first have to draw the parallelogram of 50 mm sides. So here is the center of the parallelogram. Now from this center, I am going to mark 25 mm distance on one side, 25 on the other side. Then through these points, I'll draw vertical lines. Then from this point, midpoint, I'll mark 25 on one side, 25 on the other side. Then 25 on one side, 25 on the other side. Joining these points, here I get the parallelogram. Now, once I get the parallelogram, here again the longer diagonal is already existing. That is the longer diagonal for the outer semicircular portion which I had used. Same is the longer diagonal for this small parallelogram as well. And here I have midpoints of these two sides. Next I have to mark the midpoints for the other two sides. So if this is 50 mm, the midpoint is at 25 mm. Next, top midpoint, again it will be connected to the bottom corner with the help of a light line. Bottom midpoint to the top corner with light line. Now where they are cutting the longer diagonal, that will give me the center point. Next, taking this center and distance equal to this midpoint, drawing a light arc up till here. Next, here I'll keep this as the center and the distance is up till here where I had ended this arc up to the midpoint. Here I'm getting this arc. Now like this, another semicircle is here, but I won't be drawing that because it is intersecting this surface, and in case of isometric drawing we don't have to draw hidden surfaces, so it won't be seen here, it won't be drawn. Now after completing this part, the next thing would be when I'm looking from front. In that case, here this disc is visible having 15 mm height, but when I look from top, the same disc, I can say that it is semicircular in shape, having radius 25 mm, and where it is starting, leaving 7 mm from both the sides, that is along the width. So I'll start with this, and it should be exactly at the center for this semicircular portion. I'm taking half of 64 mm, leaving 7 mm from both the sides. Or I can say from the center, the diameter is 50 mm because radius is 25. So since the total width is 64, from the center, if I'm marking 25 on one side, 25 on other side, that gives me 50 mm. So automatically the gap which remains here is 7 mm on one side, 7 mm on the other side. So 7 plus 7, that is 14, plus 50, which gives me 64 mm. That is the total width of the object. Now through these points I am drawing light line parallel to the length. Now after this, here the portion, if I see this semicircular part, it is up to 80 mm. So whatever this length is left, that is 50 mm. That is the length for this semicircular portion which I am going to draw. So as we can see here, it is 50 mm. Now since the semicircular disc is having a height of 15, so from these 2 points I would be drawing light vertical lines, having a height of 15 mm. From these points also I'll be marking 15 mm height. So here is the parallelogram, or the disc inside which I would be drawing the semicircle, which is visible from top, having 50 mm sides throughout. Now for that, the procedure is, as I have drawn for the semicircle, first I should get the longer diagonal of this parallelogram, so joining it. Then getting the longer diagonal, next I need to mark the midpoints for all the sides. This is 50 mm, so half of that, 25. Here also this is 50 mm, so 25 even here. Once I have marked all the midpoints for all sides of the parallelogram, next here in this case I'll be connecting this top midpoint to the bottom corner, opposite corner, in such a way that it cuts the longer diagonal. Similarly this midpoint to its opposite corner, cutting the longer diagonal. And where these lines are cutting the longer diagonal, I am getting 2 points which are the centers. And now I want semicircular portion only up to these midpoints. So this is the line at which the semicircle should end, and the procedure is, first I am taking this center and taking radius up to this end, joining them. Next I need to connect this arc up to this midpoint. For that I am choosing this center, which is at this location, measuring this radius. So this is the semicircle which I am getting. A similar semicircle will be there at the bottom as well, because here this part is having a height of 15 mm. For that I'll be projecting its points 15 mm down, like where this arc is cutting the longer diagonal. First I'm projecting that point downwards, then where it is ending at this point, the midpoint is down. Next the center. So first I have projected these 3 points downwards. Now the center will shift down by 15 mm. So taking this center, and the radius as I had taken previously, the same radius, center is being shifted. From here I'll draw a light arc. Then here also I need another arc. For that, where this arc is ending, I'll project that point downwards. So I would be projecting this point down. Next the center which I had used, which is here, this will also be projected down, and here I'm getting its distance as 15 mm downward. So keeping the same center which I had used previously for this arc, the center is being shifted now 15 mm down, and here I need an arc So this is the semicircular disc which I am getting. First I'll keep it light. At the end I'm going to make it dark. Next, after reaching here, inside this semicircle there is another circle of diameter 20 mm. Now I need to draw that circle. So here inside the semicircle there is another circle having diameter 20 mm. So here I need to draw another circle of diameter 20. For that the procedure is, first I need to mark the center, and for the center, here when I connect these two midpoints, now the midpoints here and this line joining these two midpoints will give me the center at this location. Once I get the center for the parallelogram, the diameter which is required is 20 mm. For that 20 mm from the same center, I'll mark 10 mm on one side, 10 mm on the other side. So that gives me the diameter 20. Similarly onto the other side, 10 mm on both sides. Next, drawing parallel line. Another parallel line. Now when I get all the sides as 20 mm, the next thing is longer diagonal is same for both the parallelograms, that is for outer semicircle and the inner circle. Here I am having the midpoints, so connecting them, the top midpoint to the bottom opposite corner, bottom midpoint to the top corner, and here where they are cutting, these lines are cutting the longer diagonal, I'll mark those points as the centers. The next thing is keeping this as the center, and here is the radius up to the midpoint, drawing a light arc. Similarly, keeping this as the center and the radius where I have ended this semicircular part, drawing an arc. Next, keeping this center where it is cutting the longer diagonal, and here I measure the radius up to this point, and from here I'll draw light arc. Next, keeping this center, now this is the circle which I'm getting inside the semicircle. Now since it is 15 mm deep, we have to check whether some portion of the circle will be visible inside this. So for that I need an arc here, like parallel to this arc, if I can see this. So projecting light line downward, projecting with light line downwards, and for this arc the center was here, so projecting that center down, measuring 15 mm over it, and I can keep the same radius, but the center is being shifted 15 mm down. Now this arc would be coming inside the circle, so it won't be drawn here because it is intersecting, and intersections are not shown in case of isometric projections, or we cannot draw any part hidden, so we'll leave it as it is. Now once I have completed up till here, I'll go on making these arcs dark. So making these arcs dark. Now once I have drawn this circle, next I'll make the semicircular portion dark. Here was the center. Then I'll make this bigger semicircles dark, starting from here. This was the center, and it will be only up to this portion because intersections won't be shown here. So here, next I'll make these semicircles dark. Next, making the inner semicircle dark. Then, after making them dark, here I'll draw the surfaces like connecting both the semicircles here. Then these semicircles are going inside this semicircular surface. So here I am getting these two semicircular portion. Next, here we have to draw the complete surface. For that, there will be a line which shows that the semicircular portion is throughout, that is the inner semicircle. For that, I am drawing a light parallel line, then making it dark. So like this, the inner surface will be seen. And then if we look at the question, here in this case, from the front view, this semicircle is seen. So here this surface is seen, means this is the direction of the front view. Next, this disc will appear as a rectangle, and there is a circular hole inside that which is not visible from the front, so it is hidden. Next, when we are looking from top, this semicircle, which is the bigger semicircle, will appear as a rectangle. It is appearing as a rectangle. Then the semicircular portion here is visible from the top, so this portion is visible along with the circle inside. Then the inner semicircle is not seen from the top, so it has to be hidden. So here this semicircle is hidden and leaving a gap of 77 mm, means this semicircular disc is in the middle, so there is dark line separating them. And once we have understood this, no need to give the dimension for isometric drawing, and here we complete this problem.